Hey everybody, welcome back to theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Again, it's theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Keep your questions coming in. They're good. They remind me of things that I know that are important to you guys, but yet for some reason I haven't created content around those topics lately. So thank you very much. Today's question comes from Twitter, and by the way, you can find me anywhere, alright? Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, YouTube, email dan@theclinicaltrialsguru.com, call or text 949-415-6256, however you want. It doesn't matter to me, alright? That's why I'm on a bunch of different platforms, whatever's easiest for you, and I'll keep you anonymous. That's the most important thing, right? So today's video is about retention in clinical research, meaning study participant retention. So this person, it's not necessarily a question, more of like a rant, and she kind of wanted me to give some comments on this. I might turn this into a written blog post as well. This person's started a trial at their site for a weight loss, but they're having a terrible time with patient retention. And it has nothing to do with the fact that the drug doesn't work, because from this person's anecdotal evidence, the drug does work. The drug is good. So the reason why they're having issues with retention is because there's a dietary part of the protocol that the patients are not following. For example, they're eating cookies, chips, and other fatty foods, not following the diet regimen, and therefore they're not continuing to lose weight, which I understand if you're running a trial is not going to show the results that you want. So if the dietary regimen is in the protocol for a reason, then study participants should be encouraged to follow it. Now, rationale behind the protocol requirements for this diet may need to change. We see that happen all the time with protocol amendments. But if you're just a research site, you're not in control of that. If you're a sponsor and you're starting to hear the same thing from a bunch of your sites that everyone's dropping out, this person says 1 out of 8 patients is following the protocol. Everyone else dropped out because the dietary restrictions are too much or too difficult for them to follow. So this might be something the sponsor may need to reconsider, amending the protocol. Initially, when a protocol is rolled out and a new clinical trial gets started, protocols are typically a lot more restrictive, and then as the sponsors learn from the sites, from feedback from the sites, that either patients are not meeting inclusion-exclusion criteria, or they're screen failing at a much higher than anticipated rate, or they're dropping out at a much higher than anticipated rate, there's no real value in the data because you're not getting enough of an N, a population sample size for your study if everyone's dropping out. So retention is key in clinical research because you want to be able to follow these study participants from screening through end of study. And if everyone's dropping out, like in the beginning, in the first 10-20% of the trial, you're losing money and you're not getting enough data. As a research site, unfortunately, there's not much you can do except the usual encourage them. We did a study for adolescent smoking cessation. So it sounds crazy. I mean, adolescents are not even legally allowed to smoke cigarettes, but there was a study for adolescent smoking cessation, and the sites were encouraged to have therapists on site. There were therapists on site to help specifically for retention for this particular trial. So maybe you're allowed to do that. Maybe you can have some therapists. I know it's probably going to cost more. If that's not in the budget, maybe you're going to have to be the de facto therapist in all this. So that's something that helps. But really, if the protocol is, if you have 8 people and only 1 is able to do this, and other sites are experiencing the same thing, eventually the sponsor is going to amend the protocol. So that's my advice for you, other than just encouraging them and maybe having a therapist or some kind of staff member on site that's dedicated to just helping them with compliance for the diet part of the trial, which is basically asking them for a lifestyle change, there's not much you can do except hope that maybe the sponsor can amend the protocol a little. And I know this is the case also in a lot of studies with e-diaries, where the patients are given an e-diary to take home in between their weekly visits, and they have to fill out the e-diary 3 times a day. And if they forget to fill it out, the site should get an alert, and then the site's supposed to call them and remind them. Well, what happens, as you know, at a lot of these busy sites is they've got like 50 study participants that have visits going on at any given time. And if they might get an alert, a study coordinator might get an alert, that person may not be able to reach the study participant to remind him or her to fill out their e-diary, or they may not be able to get a hold of that person, and then it goes on the back burner, and what happens is the patient misses another day and another day, and by their next visit, they're surprised to learn that they've been dropped from the study. Well, these kind of things happen, and these are things that sponsors are really trying to figure out, and maybe figure out how to fix with technology like the Apple Watch and different things like that, to make protocol adherence and compliance from study participants smoother, with less friction, and because of that have increased retention in clinical trials, and as a result of that have better data for the clinical trials that they're spending lots of money for. All right, so hopefully this question helps, and keep them coming. Dan at theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Take care.